find the least common multiple, you need to list the multiples of each number until you find the lowest number besides 0 that matches. When we start with 2, 2 times 0 is 0, 2 times 1 is 2, 2 times 2 is 4, 2 times 3 is 6, 2 times 4 is 8, 2 times 5 is 10. All right, on this one, my basic rule, tell my students, is to stop when you get to the times 5 multiple. Since multiples go on forever, you need a place to stop. If necessary, we can always add more multiples on back here, but for this case, we'll go ahead and stop at 2 times 5, and then we can go and start listing our multiples of 3. 3 times 0 is 0, 3 times 1 is 3, and then we have to check to see if there's a match. And there is no match in the multiples of 2. 3 times 2 is 6. 6 has a match here in the multiples of 2. 6 is the smallest multiple they share besides 0, so that would be the least common multiple. When we look at one like this one didn't come from the book. We list the multiples of 6. We'll go ahead and go through our 6 times tables and list the multiples of 6 all the way to 6 times 5. Then we'll start listing the multiples of 8 until we either find a match or we might need to continue on with our multiples. 8 times 0 is 0. 8 times 1 is 8, but there's no match here for 8. 8 times 2 is 16, but again here in the 6's multiples we don't have a 16. 8 times 3 is 24, which 24 does have a match in the multiples of 6, so the least common multiple is 24. For 16 and 48, 0 times 16 is 0, 16 times 1 is 16. When you have a problem like this one, and you don't know your 16 times tables, I don't expect you to have those memorized, you would then go to this off to scratch paper or on the side of your page and go ahead and do the scratch work and do 16 times 2, which is 32. Then you would have to do 16 times 3, which would come out to be 48. Now 48 does match the other number here, so we don't have to keep listing the multiples of 16, because of course in our 48 times tables we are going to have a 48, and 48 is our match. That's the least common multiple. Now for number 7, we list the multiples of 3 all the way out to 3 times 5. Then we start listing our multiples of 7. 7 is not a match. 7 is not a match for anything in our multiples of 3. 7 times 2 is 14, there's no match. Next is 21, there's no match. And we can continue here, but if you notice, our multiples of 7 are getting much higher, especially if we go through the 7 times 5, they're much higher than our multiples of 3. We haven't had a match yet, but we're going to have to go back up to our multiples of 3 and keep listing there so we can kind of catch up, per se, to catch up to these higher numbers in the multiples of 7. 3 times 6 is 18, 3 times 7 is 21, and that one does match in our set of multiples. Now, as I told you in class, you don't have to list a certain number of multiples. For example, here, when you were listing your multiples of 7, if you got to 21 and you realize, wait, that's going to be in the 3's times tables, that's going to be a multiple of 3, then you could have stopped at 21. You didn't have to necessarily put these. It's fine to put extra multiples, but if you can kind of anticipate and start figuring out what the least common multiple might be, that's great. But for now, remember, I do want to see your list of multiples because I want to have something to refer to make sure that you are truly understanding all of this work.